Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Ask the Attorney. This is season 2, episode 1. I am Maya Engel, and I am joined by Mary Ann Wehr. She is an estate planning attorney for Great Lakes Center for Estate Planning here in Northern Michigan. And Mary Ann, it's great to be back for another season of Ask the Attorney.
It absolutely is. I've been looking forward to this season, and I've been, talking to a lot of guests to join me and some interesting topics to bring up, right? And it struck me, it's been about a year since we started this, maybe a little over a year.
Yeah.
And I thought we could just start with a brand new introduction of what it is that we're doing here.
Sure. I'm sure we have some viewers who watched a lot of season 1 and probably know about you and your story, but hopefully we have some new viewers who are maybe just learning about estate planning and the importance of it. And so for people who are new here, let's start off just by talking about you, Mary Ann, and your background, what exactly you do. So what is your history with Northern Michigan?
Yes. So I have a deep history with Northern Michigan. So I grew up here. My family goes back to the late 1800s, actually, in this area, in the Traverse City area. I just love Northern Michigan and its people. I did leave for a while. I worked at General Motors at the Rensen in Detroit for quite a few years as an attorney there. But I am back to my roots. It's where my grandparents were, lived. My parents were born. In fact, I had the same kindergarten teacher as my mother, my father, and my 3 brothers.
No kidding.
So strange, I know. So my roots are deeply here.
Mhm.
Plus, my husband and I lived around Northern Michigan. We had a place in Mackinac City for a while, a place in Sheboygan for a while. Loved them both. So we just feel right about being back here.
And of course, you are an attorney. What exactly do you do?
Yes, I am an attorney, and I am an estate planning attorney. So I do a lot of work with families planning their trusts, their wills, their legacy, how they want their setting up their relationships for their families going forward after they've left this earth, or helping them organize and plan for the times that they're here. Some people are starting to think about what happens if I have long-term care. Well, that's part of estate planning, like Medicaid, elder law type planning. So I feel that what I do as an attorney is just really build meaningful relationships. And that's my passion. I build meaningful relationships with people. I provide a service. And I just feel it's part of my duty as an estate planning attorney to teach people about this. Because the reality is, once you know about it, you can take action and really help your family in the long run. So Maya, I'm really thankful for this opportunity with the digital studio. It gives me the opportunity to introduce myself to other people in Northern Michigan. And so I'm really happy to share.
And some people might already know this about you, especially if they watched our first season. But for those, again, who don't, what compelled you to become an estate planning attorney?
It is a very compelling story. So it is. It seems, I spent 15 years as an executive attorney for General Motors. So one wouldn't necessarily see me making this change, but I really view this as a service. And I view it more than just a service that I can provide. And my clients actually share with me, they also view it as a service. They view what I'm doing. And so I have had some real unique family experiences, some not so happy, but that compelled me and created a passion in me to work with families through this. My son was a paramedic and a firefighter. And he was just so dedicated to service. That is all he really wanted to do, is help people in their most dire times, right? So if you're meeting a paramedic, you might be having the worst day of your life. And he was just so passionate about serving anybody in need of his service. And so he died of COVID on Christmas Eve. And that left me with this feeling of wanting to continue his legacy of service. And I seriously mean that when I tell my story. And the months that followed his death were marred with probate. He owned a home before he was married. They were marred with probate for his wife to drag herself through. They'd only been married almost 2 years. She was 7 weeks pregnant when he died. So she had so much going on. She didn't have the opportunity to grieve. And I just kept thinking, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to have helped her. Obviously, I helped her find the right lawyers, but it was just a tragic time. So it really sparked in me this interest and passion about doing that, having a plan, estate planning. I just dove into learning. There's a lot of law in this area, but I just dove in. And the result is I started this law firm. And I have loved it. Sometimes I feel I'm sitting on my shoulder. I think he likes what I'm doing too. But it has been my calling and my passion. And the interesting thing is, I've been able to attend chili cook-offs for the fire department and put an estate plan in the silent auction and and help in that way. So I've stayed connected. I have a beautiful grandson, and it's just my legacy of service. It really has become my passion.
Well, thank you so much, Mary Ann, for being so open with your story and talking about James. And I know, like you said, I've heard you talk about him quite a bit, and so I still get a little emotional just thinking about it. But I know that he's probably just so proud of you and so happy of everything that you are doing.
Oh, thank you. And on my website, which is Great Lakes Center for Estate Planning.com, there is a memorial to him. One of the page is a memorial to James, kind of describes a bit about his character and who he was and who he is in my life. I think of him more in the present sense than I do in the past sense.
And then I do, just so everyone knows, I do have Mary Ann's website. I think your website. I know I have your phone number and your email. I think I have your website also in the description. If not, I'll be sure to add a comment with your website so everyone can go check that
Yep,
out.
please. Yep. And actually, yep. So that is, yep. And exciting news, my law firm just moved to the Center Point building on West Bay. It's that building that's just north of, say, Apache Trout Grill. It's got the seagulls on the side. It's right in the marina. And so if nothing else, come and visit me there. It's a beautiful place to be.
Beautiful building. And Mary Ann, you have a boutique law firm. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, what I think of a boutique law firm is it's just the right size to serve people. And I feel privileged to serve them. So my firm focuses, the boutique part of it is it focuses on estate planning and elder law. So my focus is on people, bringing them into kind of my world and talking to them about possibility and an opportunity to build their legacy, to create a legacy, and to help their families at a real time of need, like my family needed help. I don't take drunk driving. Cases, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I don't know a thing about divorce. I'm not a personal injury person. But everybody who walks through my door is a good match for my service because they find me looking for most people will say, do you do wills? Because that's how people think of what an estate plan is. And I certainly do wills, but I do so much more. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But the one thing about being a boutique law firm, I can meet people where they are. And I'm so excited about that. People can come to my office at Centerpoint. We can have coffee, sit there and enjoy the view. Or we can join each other on a Zoom call. It's wintertime. Boy, I don't know. These roads last few days, not so much fun.
Not fun.
No. So So, I can meet people on Zoom. They can come to my office. We can do a little bit of a mix, but it is really fun to meet people where they are,
Mhm.
help them understand what they can do with their legacy, and move on from there.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So people live in Traverse City, like you said, they can come see you in person at your beautiful new office. But if people live somewhere else around Michigan, they don't have to be right in Traverse City. They can get in touch with you and you guys can do an online meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have served people from Manistee to Sheboygan to Kalkaska to Petoskey, Harbor Springs, um, South, Irons. I mean, I have uh, served people from all over northern Michigan. So, and I really, really appreciate meeting them. Another thing I do, Maya, is I do workshops. And up to this point, I've been doing workshops in like a conference room type setting where I teach and educate people about, I just dive into the topic of estate planning. This year in 2025, I want to start moving that workshop outward. I want to start doing a workshop like a luncheon, right? So meet me at a certain restaurant. We'll have lunch together. We'll talk about estate planning because it is my passion, and and kind of learn about it. But just have it in a relaxing environment. So, so on that note, if there's anyone listening who has an idea of where I should go and what restaurant I should take my roadshow to, I'd love to hear from them. But these workshops are popular,
Yeah.
which is why I'm moving to a restaurant environment where I can serve more people. But space tends to be limited. So, I invest a couple of hours, I answer all the questions. One thing that's fun is kind of the conversation that starts to occur with people in the room as they learn new topics or new ideas. So again, love to have you come to my workshops, but I'd love to have ideas of where they should be held as well.
So does it cost money to go to your workshops?
No, oh, absolutely not. No, I'll buy lunch. I'm thinking about, and I haven't made the reservation, but I'm thinking about maybe the VI Grill in Sutton's Bay for my first.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a beautiful location.
Great spot.
And, yep, great spot, and invite people kind of regionally. So I was thinking the Leelanau County folks, and then maybe I'm brainstorming, but having a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I'll buy lunch and in exchange, you can listen to me. I try not to be terribly boring, but I don't think I am. But people really appreciate those workshops. I can tell, right?
Yeah.
I can tell.
Sounds like a great opportunity to learn more about estate planning. So let's dive a little deeper into what exactly estate planning is.
Exactly. So I think of it as a gift. I think of it as an act of love and a gift to your family that allows you to set your legacy, to think about what you want with your stuff at your death, who you'd like to have it, under what parameters. Like, for example, most people coming into my office say, I almost can tell what they're going to say. I want to make it easy for my family. I want this to be easy. I don't want my family to go through what I've gone through if they've just had a death. I think we've talked about that with your mom, right? Yep. We just don't want our family to have to go through the whole probate process. It takes forever. They need something. And, you have people that are engaged in probate 2, 3, 4 years, sometimes more. Oof. And so they want to avoid that. They want to make sure that their family doesn't fight. They want to set the rules, set down what they want for their family so that their family knows, so that Johnny knows that he was given this amount of assets or money from mom and dad, and that's what they wanted him to have. It also gives them the opportunity to really give a gift to their family during their life, because estate planning is an integrated strategic, meaningful, intentional, all those words, mindful plan to help your family through the most difficult times. So there are times, and we all know these people who have needed long-term care, and they've needed it because maybe they've lost capacity. They have dementia of some type. And when a person loses capacity, they no longer can write their own checks. They no longer can pay their own bills. They no longer can make their own decisions. And part of estate planning is to put together the right documents for even those times in your life. One's called a durable power of attorney. One's called a, medical power of attorney. We won't dive into the details here, but what they do is they, at very critical points in your life, they help your family avoid having to petition the probate court for like a conservatorship and just go on with business of taking care of you and loving you. And you've chosen the person that you think would be best suited for that role. So that's part of estate planning, is for your life, for your death. It also integrates your assets, how you want your assets to be distributed. Some people want a good share of their assets to go to charity. Some people want to put their assets into a protective trust that their family can use for generations. There's just all kinds of thoughts and ideas out there. And I think coming in and talking to me at Great Lakes Center for Estate Planning is a good start, because you can start to brainstorm. Hey, I've been thinking about this or that or the other thing. And I can start to put some framework around it to say, you're not crazy. These are good thoughts, right?
So going off of that, how old should someone be when they're starting to consider an estate plan?
Those are good questions, right? So an estate plan is many things to many people. I think that, most parents don't realize it until it hits them right in the face. But when your child turns 18, now they're going off to college or even just moving into the apartment down the street. If something were to happen to them where they needed someone to help them with their medical decisions or even their finances, the parents can no longer just step in and help, even though, yesterday they could, today they can't. So at 18, there should be some documents put into place, medical power of attorney, durable power of attorney, so that if your child is in that horrible car accident or something happens, you can step in and help easily. So that's early, that's young to think about an estate plan. Maybe there's nothing that a will is necessary for, but as people get older and they have more assets, that starts to come into play. But where it really is important is a young parent. So the only place, the legal place to draft or to identify legal guardians is in a will. So if you're a young family, and you should think about, if something happened to both of you, who would you want to take care of your child? And that is such a difficult decision. But if you don't make it, think of the mayhem and the chaos that could ensue for that child as multiple members of the family come charging in and want to be that caregiver. They want to through love, but it creates a lot of chaos. Mm-hmm. So, certainly young parents should have an estate plan. And as people's assets and life get more complex, those estate plans tend to become more complex. I see a lot of people in their, that get to be around 50 and they start to think, yeah, it's time to really get this down. They've got some money in the bank. They have a house. Their kids are growing. And so all ages. But the one thing about an estate plan is it can change as your life changes.
Sure. I do have a follow-up question, but I want to take a quick break to say that for some reason we weren't live on Facebook right away. So we are now. So if you're watching on Facebook and you missed the first 15 minutes of this season 2, episode 1 of Ask the Attorney, you can go to the Up North Live YouTube channel or our Twitter page to watch the first part to get caught up. anyways, back to where we are. And also, I should mention this too. The whole point of this is to ask questions to Mary Ann. So if at any point during this episode or in the future, if you have any questions, you can always leave a live comment. We can take kind of like a break, a pause like we're doing right now to ask your questions. And you can also always send an email to our newsroom, newsroom@upnorthlive.com. That's our email address. Maybe just make the subject ask the attorney, and then we will ask Mary Ann that question during our next segment. But anyways, okay, going back to our conversation, my follow-up question was, does someone need a certain amount of money before they can start working with an attorney to get an estate plan?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's a little bit of a bias. People think they need, it's the word estate, right? You call it an estate plan. Somehow in your mind, you go to, I picture this big plantation home with a fence around it and in the back, some horses, and that's my view. That's what an estate is to me.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what makes people think I don't have enough money for an estate. But as I said, it's really about your life. It's really about your life and your legacy, about protecting your children and making sure that in the worst times of your life, your family is taken care of in the manner in which you would like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and there's another piece too, and this really brings in the elder law piece, but there's another piece to estate planning that I really have never focused on a lot, but that is proactively planning for long-term care.
Mm-hmm.
There are many tools, that a lawyer can put into place when they are, sorry, I was just distracted a little bit, but proactive planning can protect your hard-earned assets from long-term care cost. And at Great Lakes Center for Estate Planning, we will assist in proactive, I call it proactive Medicaid planning, because that's what it is. But there's interesting statistics. Did you know that over 50% of individuals turning 65 today are expected to be in long-term care or in a nursing home? 50%. Wow. So, and then by the year 2050, the number being needing long-term care is going to more than double. Of course, our population is doubling.
Sure.
But, baby boomers, that generation is moving through. And the average projected stay today is 2.8 years. So almost 3 years of paying long-term care. And 20% of those people that go into long-term care need it for 5 years or more. Often those are people with dementia, Alzheimer's, because their body's healthy, but their mind isn't.
Right.
But then if you add all that up, what is 22.8 years is 24, 32 months. At $10,000 a month or more, that is a lot of money. So to be able to start to plan to how to protect your assets from those long-term care costs, take advantage of Medicaid, know what it would take. Those are all topics that Great Lakes Center for Estate Planning can help folks with. And we start to look at that when you're 60, 65 years old, maybe a little bit older. But many of the tools that we use really don't change how you live your life at all.
Right.
Just a little secure. Yeah.
So really there's a lot to estate planning. And I think a lot of people just have this idea that a will is an estate plan, which sure, it's part of it, but it's not the whole thing, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And it's really common. I'll often answer the phone and people will say to me, because as we talked, estate planning, right? But they'll say, do you do wills? And I'll say, well, I work on strategic estate plans. A will is part of it. But that's what comes to mind for people is, do you do wills? And while that is another kind of a misnomer or misunderstanding, a will is not an estate plan. When you need something, you need an integrated strategy for your assets and for both during your life and at your death. and that sets forth your wishes and your decisions. And if done well, it just integrates with your life.
Mhm.
We talked about, like, you can get sick, you need somebody to help you during your life. So an estate plan is much more than a will. And as you said, will always include a will.
Yeah,
But I always say that the documents that you think of, like a will is a document.
sure.
Well, the will is an outcome of building that strategy, right? It's how you memorialize the strategy is through these documents, but it's not, I wouldn't say to anybody, come into my office for a will and a trust and a power of attorney, and we should be good, right? Because that's not how I think of it, and that's not really how it is really effective.
So when someone does complete an estate plan, can they just put it on the shelf and they're good to go?
Well, so that has happened a lot, right? I have people calling and saying, I did a trust in 1997. Is it still good? So my answer is, well, the laws have probably changed, but have you looked at it? Like, and so they'll kind of crack open the, cover, and they'll say, oh my gosh, the person that I had as trustee, which is a key role, is no longer with us. And these beneficiaries have moved all over the country, and they wouldn't want this or that or the other. So yeah, things change. So
Yeah.
as life changes, so should your estate plan. Now, I'm not thinking you should think of me, when you at the most critical times of your life, but I like the idea of staying in touch with my clients over the course of time, at least one nice review a year. But I want to stay in touch so that I can say, did you buy a house? Did you sell a house? Did you have another child? So because those are things that can impact your estate plan. And so just tweaking it here and there can keep it up to date and up to speed so that if it's needed or when it's needed, the contents of it are legally viable. Like about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a significant change to how retirement accounts can be distributed, and specific language is required in trusts. And anything created, I've even seen things created in 2021 that don't have that language. So that's an upgrade that most trusts need.
Sure.
So it's a rule book, and as the circumstances of your life change, so should your estate plan.
That makes sense. So tonight we talked about a lot of the just kind of basics of estate planning, exactly what you do, but there's so much more to dive into. So how can people learn more?
There's so much. So they can learn more. First, my workshops, right? Second, tuning in with us. We're starting in January. You and I are going to have our live stream every other Thursday. This is the last one for 2024. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. But the more people learn, they can call me. I'm happy to help educate, but I really drive my workshops. But I do have, my first consultation with a family is about an hour and a half or 2 hours long, whatever they need. And we will. There is no pressure to decide at that moment what you want. So there's another way of learning about it. But I am going to bring some of the most exciting guests on next year. I am. I know there's a gentleman that I would call him an influencer in this area. He may not think of himself as that, but he's going to join me. His name is John Braddock, and he does a weekly podcast on this whole, and his podcast is listened to a lot. So I promised him that if he comes on this with us, Maya, I'll go on his podcast.
There you go. Good collab.
Yep. Quick kid pro crow. So I mean, that is going. I've recently There's a representative from Reynolds Junkoff who would love to come on and talk about funeral pre-planning. That's very, um, I don't do it, but it's kind of along the same tone, right? You're kind of preparing to help your family. So she's going to join us. And of course, last year I had some financial advisors join us and a ethics professional from Munson Healthcare join. And so I just really want to bring people to where we are here to help educate. And again, please, people, send in any ideas of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And I will do my best to cover it, as well as find someone to work to cover it with me,
Yes.
with us. So
Yes, definitely send in your questions. And then there might be a question that we share with Mary Ann that she says, well, there's a lot to this. That could be a whole episode. So we really want to kind of cater to what you want to know. So be sure to send us any questions you have for Mary Ann. Again, you can send it to the Up North Live Newsroom's email. That is newsroom@upnorthlive.com. Subject line it, Ask the Attorney. I will save them in a folder, and we will be sure to ask Mary Ann any of your questions. But Mary Ann, I'm so happy that we are back for season 2 of Ask the Attorney. I'm really looking forward to all of your future topics and guests, and it's just good to be back and sharing information on this topic that I think doesn't really get talked about enough, but it is so incredibly important.
Thank you. I agree. And I am so happy to be back as well, and happy to be working with you. I have a light on that's bright there. Oh, I need it.
We're almost done. You can turn it off soon.
Yeah, it's pretty soon. So I appreciate everybody who's watching. I really want to educate and learn and have people learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I learn from people too, right? So you ask your question, I'm going to know, now that's a question I haven't thought about a lot as being important to someone. Now I know it is, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, so I just want to say thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes, thank you, Mary Ann. We will see you back here in January for episode 2 of season 2. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight on the first episode of season 2 of Ask the Attorney. Yeah, like Mary Ann said, we won't see you for the rest of the month. So happy holidays, everyone. And we'll see you back here in January.
I would add, if you want to binge watch, you can go to Up North Live, Ask the Attorney page, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
We have all of the episodes from season 1 there if you want to get caught up. But I have a feeling we might be touching on topics.
We're going to start,
in season 2.
Exactly.
So,
I was kind of joking there. So.
but really, if you want to, there's a lot of great information there. So, all right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you in January.
Bye-bye. Thank you.